For loop, while loop, do while loop, so many loops, even the hyper loop. What are these loops, man? And have you understood this event loop in JavaScript? It's a loop, but more important in JavaScript, it helps you a lot. Stay tuned, we will discuss in this video in detail about the event loop. So let's discuss about event loop. You might have heard in programming there is a for loop, while loop and do while loop. And what this means? They iterate over something, right? An event loop is also iterating on something in JavaScript. And it provides a lot of power to the programmers. So in JavaScript, there is no threads, right? It is a single threaded. And in your browser, let's say, you opened a web page. You are clicking on some other different buttons. You might be doing some operations. For example, you have clicked on upload a file. Then this web application is uploading some file which is existing on your machine, right, to the network. Now, that means it is doing some IO operation, or you have clicked on some button which is making a call to some server, right, and getting the input. So it is making a network call, right? So there are so many things going inside this web page, and all this is done by JavaScript. If it is single threaded, then how you are able to see a seamless experience without any hang, without any issues that it delays your cursor movement, right? Because you might be moving the cursor on this page. All this is because the event loop. So in JavaScript, let's understand how the code executes. So let's say you have some code, right? And now this code can contain some instructions like doing some calculation with a variable, or it can have some functions, or it can make some network calls using, let's say, fetch or XUS, whichever package you like, right? And even doing some IO operation, reading a file or uploading or writing to a file, right? So many things in, basically this is in Node.js, but browser can also upload file, right? It can read through your disk. This is through the web APIs. Now let's consider this is the code which is executing, right, one by one. Let's say now in this particular thing you have made a call to a function, and this function is having, let's say, reading some file. In another line you have another function and it is making a network call, right? Now what happens, it is your thread will wait for the server to return the response, and in one case your thread will wait for the disk IO to read some data. In the meantime, there are a few other instructions which are getting executed. So all this is done through event loop. So event loop is what? Event loop is all this is divided into some chunks. So for example, this particular code when started, right, it will run, and if it has to wait, it will be added to the queue. So there are two types of tasks which event loop have. I'll talk about it, and these are basically, let's talk about it, micro task and macro task. Right now, what happens? Let's say you are this function is taking some time, right? It's a macro task. So this task will be added in this macro task with some context that on which particular line in this particular function it is waiting, or this has made a call to the device hard disk, right, to read some data. So it has all that information, whereas this F2 is also again a macro task, right? Now there is a micro task, right? So what the micro task is doing? Micro task is, let's say you are moving your cursor on the page, right? That cursor is moving, it is drawing correctly, and if you have opened some drop down or something, right, it is redrawing that particular thing on the your browser. So these are the micro tasks, and these will be added here, right? Now whenever the some event loop or something is executing, right, after it is done, if any task exists in the micro task, because these are small tasks and important tasks for the user experience, so these are executed first, and later on there are few tasks which can consume time, and if machine is slow, then there will be no latency, or there will be latency, but it not making the experience worse. So in that case, macro task will be picked in the second cycle, right? Similarly, now there are three functions you might have heard in terms of time. There is set timeout, set interval, and run set immediate. Now these functions are basically timing function. So with timeout, it will run that particular function, whoever calls this timeout, it will run again after the specified time, right? So it will be gone to macro task. Set interval, again it's a recursive thing, and the same logic applies as set timeout, but it is a recursive, so it will run again and again. Again this if any functions call this type of function, this function basically, then it will again go to the macro task. But let's say for performance reason, you are making some application, maybe let's consider you are making some fintech application or trading related application, right? And you are very focused on the performance of that particular application, and you want to run any task immediately as much as possible. So for example, in a event loop, if some task is going on, right, it is running some time, so within this particular time nothing else can run, right, which is obvious because it's a single threaded. But after this task is done, how can we schedule that particular important task? Basically, if any task we want to put in a micro task, because micro task will be run definitely after this a bigger task is done, then all the micro tasks will be completed after that, and the task from macro task will be picked, right? So if we want to add anything here, then we can use this set immediate. So as soon as the current running task completed, after that this particular task which is existing, we have pushed in micro task, can be run, right? And this is how your rendering will happen, and your experience with the rendering become good because of this micro task. And so this, we can add any task we can add in the micro task using queue micro task. So there is a function or the variable, basically a queue, on which we can add our task when we program. But internally there are so many things with JavaScript libraries that other people have built and we are using, are based on this concept. So I have said you, the event loop is one of the best thing in JavaScript, which makes your life very easy. Here you don't have to understand or deal with threads, and you don't have to deal with concurrency issues, race condition, right? And your task will not be starved. That's at least perfected by the single thread replication, which is achieved through event loop. So if you are a JavaScript programmer, master this thing, because it will help you in becoming a pro programmer. For performance reasons, the concepts related to event loop are very important, and it will help you in understanding a lot of the libraries which are written and which are considered one of the best libraries in JavaScript. So with this note, I think you have got the idea of event loop, how it is functioning in JavaScript, and how you can use it and what are its importance. So if you like this video, please share with your friends and subscribe to my channel and like this video and click on the bell icon so that you get notifications of any other video which I post after this. So with this note, this is BK from Anikka signing off. Thank you.